My boyfriend asked me to lie to his wife, and the worst part is I almost did it. I'm 29, and before anyone says I'm an idiot, I know how that sounds. He wasn't my boyfriend in the official, normal sense. At least not on paper. His name is Owen, he's 38, and when I met him at work last year, he told me he was separated. Not happily married, but it's complicated. Not, we sleep in separate rooms. Separated. Lease signed, divorce in progress, co-parenting schedule being finalized. He said it casually, like he'd already had to explain it 100 times and was tired of being judged. I believed him because he made it easy to believe. He never wore a ring. He had his own apartment. I had been there enough times that I knew which cabinet had coffee mugs and which drawer stuck when you pulled it. He kept a toothbrush there that was obviously used. His fridge had the depressing contents of a man living alone. Mustard, protein drinks, eggs, leftover takeout in mismatched containers. He talked about the kids constantly, but always in the context of pickup times and school projects and how guilty he felt about missing bedtime on certain nights. It all fit. The first red flag was so small I'm embarrassed I filed it away instead of asking questions. He never let me post him, not even a hand in the corner of a dinner photo. He'd laugh and say, "I'm old, I don't need to be on the internet." I found it kind of refreshing at first because my last relationship was with a guy who treated Instagram like a second job. But then it got weirdly specific. Once I tagged the restaurant, not him, and he texted me 10 minutes later asking me to delete it because my ex follows local spots and starts fights over nothing. The second red flag was that he never called me after 9:30 p.m. Not once. He texted sure, but calls after that time were always declined or answered in a whisper. "Can I call you back?" "Why are you whispering?" "Kid's asleep on me." Again, plausible. All of it was plausible. 3 months in, I met 2 of his coworkers at a bar after a team thing. One of them, Marissa, gave me this quick look when I said, "Owen and I are heading out." Not dramatic, just a pause. Then, "Oh, you 2 are close?" Owen answered for me before I could say anything. "Don't start!" She raised both hands and laughed. "I'm not starting anything." That should have sat worse with me than it did. A week later, he canceled on me on a Friday night. We were supposed to go to this tiny Italian place I'd been wanting to try, and I was already dressed when he texted, "Family emergency. Rain check?" I was annoyed but not suspicious until I opened Venmo to pay my friend back for concert tickets and saw his public transaction to someone named Lila with a pizza emoji and a red heart. I know Venmo is a ridiculous place to discover anything meaningful, but there it was. Red heart, not a kid-related expense, not neutral. I clicked her profile because I'm not above being nosy, apparently. Her picture was just a sunset, but I could see old public transactions between them stretching back for years. Inside jokes, house emoji, wine glass. "Thanks for grabbing the allergy meds. For movie night." I sent him a screenshot and just wrote, "Who is Lila?" He didn't answer for 40 minutes. Then, "My daughter uses her mom's account sometimes. Relax." That explanation irritated me because it was just believable enough to make me feel petty for questioning it. I actually typed out, "Sorry," then deleted it. Instead, I asked, "Then why the heart?" He replied, "Because I wasn't thinking. I'm dealing with a lot tonight." We didn't speak until the next day when he showed up at my apartment with coffee and that tired, pained face he used whenever he wanted. Grace he hadn't earned yet. "You went through my Venmo?" "It's public." He rubbed his forehead. "Lila is my wife." Everything in my body went cold so fast it felt like stepping into deep water. I just stared at him. "Your wife?" "We're separated." "You told me you were basically divorced." "We are separated," he repeated slower this time, like if he said it calmly enough. I'd be unreasonable for hearing anything else. I asked if she knew about me. He hesitated for maybe 2 seconds, but it was enough. "No," I said. "Oh my God, she doesn't know." "It's not like that." I actually laughed, which came out meaner than I intended. "What exactly is it like then?" He sat on the edge of my couch and started doing this careful, lawyerly version of the truth. They were functionally over. She was staying at the house because the kids needed stability. He kept the apartment partly for work, partly because things at home were tense. They'd had conversations about seeing other people, but never put labels on it because every discussion turned into a fight. He swore he never meant to drag me into anything ugly. And I hate this part, but I didn't throw him out. I should have. Instead, I sat there asking questions like the answers could rearrange reality into something less disgusting. How many nights a week do you sleep there? It varies. Do you still sleep with her? No. He said it too fast. I asked to see his messages with her, and he got offended. Not angry, offended like I was violating something sacred. I'm not handing over private conversations about my children. That was probably the moment I should have ended it. Instead, I told him to leave and spent the next 2 days oscillating between rage and humiliation. I wasn't just hurt, I felt stupid in a really specific adult way. Not teenage stupid. Mortgage and tax bracket stupid. Then his wife called me, not from his phone, from hers. Saturday, 8:12 p.m. Hi, she said, and her voice was calmer than mine would have been. I think you're seeing my husband. My mouth went dry. I said, I didn't know he was with you. She gave this little exhale that might have been a laugh. That seems to be his favorite sentence. We talked for 30 minutes. Her name was Lila. Real person, not a Sunset Venmo avatar. She sounded exhausted, not hysterical. That made it worse somehow. She told me they were still living together full time. He had an apartment near work that he used when things got tense, which apparently meant when they'd fought, or when he wanted freedom, or when he needed a place to take calls she shouldn't hear. She said they had discussed counseling as recently as 2 months ago. She said they were intimate, off and on, then apologized for being blunt. I said, You don't have to apologize. He should. She was quiet for a second, and then said, He told me you were just a colleague who got too attached. That one actually made my eyes sting. Not because I needed to be chosen, but because it was so efficient. He had turned me into the embarrassing side character in my own life. I told her almost everything. The dinners, the weekends, the apartment, the things he said about the divorce. I left out a few intimate details because I didn't want to be cruel for sport. She thanked me in this flat voice that suggested gratitude was the only dignified option left. Then she asked me for something that's been eating at me ever since. If he asks, she said, don't tell him we spoke yet. I want to see what he does. And I agreed. I know. That part is where people are going to split. Because for the next 48 hours, I didn't block him. I let him call. I let him text. I let him come by once, and I didn't open the door. But I did stand there silently while he knocked and said, Please don't do this. He sent me paragraphs. You blindsided me. You don't understand the situation. I was going to tell her. Then a few hours later, she's acting insane and accusing me of stuff. That message made my skin crawl. I screenshotted everything and sent it to Lila. Not out of nobility. At that point, I wanted at least one person in the story to have full information, since apparently he was counting on both of us having partial versions. She eventually told him she knew. He called me 15 times in one night. On the 16th, I answered. You set me up. I didn't set you up. I stopped protecting you. He was breathing hard, like he'd run somewhere, or punched a wall, or maybe just worked himself into that kind of anger where your body wants to hit something. Do you have any idea what you've done to my kids? That line hit exactly where he intended it to. It still does. Because logically, I know he did this. He lied to both of us. He built the situation. But there is now a real family imploding in a real house. And my screenshots are in that wreckage. Lila texted me 3 days ago that he's staying somewhere else now. She also said she found out there was at least one more woman before me, maybe overlapping, maybe not. She asked if I'd be willing to forward a timeline if she needs it for legal reasons. I haven't answered yet. Part of me wants to help her however I can. Part of me wants to disappear and never hear either of their names again. And part of me, the part I'm least proud of, is still replaying every conversation, trying to figure out whether any of it was real, or whether I was just the version of him he became when he wanted to feel uncomplicated. He sent one final message this morning. I did love you in my own way. I haven't blocked him. I also haven't replied. And I genuinely can't tell which of those things says worse things about me.